You are not bad with money. That is the thing nobody wants to say out loud. You have got the 401k, you have got the index fund, you set up the automatic contributions like they told you to. You even bumped up the percentage last year when you got that raise. Before the raise got eaten by daycare and the new insurance premium, you did what you were supposed to do. And yet, somehow, 4 companies are about to spend $650 billion this year, roughly the entire GDP of Argentina, on a technology they cannot fully explain to their own shareholders. A slice of that bet is being placed with money from your retirement account. You did not approve it. Nobody asked. And the uncomfortable part is not that you might lose. It is that you were never given the option to sit this one out. This is a story about where your money actually is, not where you think it is, not where your HR benefits packet says it is, where it actually is right now, tonight, while you are watching this. There is a voice you have been hearing for about 15 years. It sounds calm. It sounds reasonable. It shows up in every personal finance article and every 401k enrollment meeting. And every conversation you have had with that one friend who acts like he figured it out. The voice says, put your money in a low-cost index fund. Do not look at it. Let compound interest do its thing, and in 30 years you will be fine. And you did that. So let us talk about what fine looks like right now. If you are in your mid-30s, the median 401k balance for people ages 35 to 39 is around $71,400. Not the average, the median. The average is higher because a small number of people with a lot of money pull that number up. The median is what the person in the middle actually has, $71,400. That is, according to CNBC reporting on Empower data from 2025, $71,400. You have been contributing for maybe 10, 12 years. You have been doing it right. And the number sitting in that account would cover roughly 3 to 5 years of daycare, depending on where you live. Not college daycare. The national average for infant center-based care runs between $14,000 and $21,000 a year. Depending on which survey you use, and if you are in Massachusetts or DC, you are looking at north of $24,000. The voice says, stay the course. It is a long game. Your bank account says it is Tuesday, and there are 9 days until payday. 36% of American households earning 6 figures live paycheck to paycheck. Not households earning $40,000, households earning over $100,000. That is Goldman Sachs data, not some random blog. And the wild part, the part that should make you sit with this for a second, is that the percentage actually goes up for some income brackets above $300,000. Turns out the treadmill does not stop just because the speed increases, it tilts. So that is where you are, doing everything right, with a number in your retirement account that does not match the story you were sold. That is the baseline. Now let me show you what that money is actually doing while you are not looking. The biggest companies on the planet, Alphabet, Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, have collectively committed to spending around $650 billion in 2026 alone on AI infrastructure. Data centers, chips, cooling systems, power. That number comes from Bridgewater's analysis, confirmed by Bloomberg and Reuters in February. $650 billion in a single year. To put that in perspective, that is more than the federal government spends on Medicare Part D veterans benefits and the entire Department of Education combined. And it is being spent on a bet. A very large, very confident, very not guaranteed bet. Now, some of that money is coming from their own cash flows, but a meaningful portion of their market value, the thing that makes your index fund go up, is now directly tied to whether this bet pays off. When you own the S&P 500, the top 10 companies make up roughly 40% of everything you hold. These are not 10 different bets across 10 different industries. Several of the largest positions in your diversified portfolio are now making the same wager. On the same technology, at the same time, the voice says that is fine. The index is self-correcting. If one company fails, another takes its place. And that is true. Over decades, over a long enough timeline, the math works. But you do not live on a timeline. You live in a specific year with specific bills, and a kid who needs braces, and a car that is making a noise you have been pretending not to hear. The question is not whether the index recovers eventually. The question is whether it recovers before you need the money. The company at the center of this sits 2 days away from where you are right now. 2 days ago, not last quarter, not last year, 2 days ago, OpenAI closed the largest private funding round in history, $122 billion in committed capital. Post-money valuation, $852 billion. That makes it more valuable on paper than JP Chase, more valuable than ExxonMobil, more valuable than every airline, hotel chain, and restaurant company in America combined. It has never made a profit. Its annualized revenue just crossed $25 billion, which sounds enormous until you do the division. 852 billion divided by 25 billion gives you a price-to-revenue ratio of about 34. For a company that, according to its own internal projections reported by the Wall Street Journal, expects to accumulate roughly $44 billion in losses between 2023 and 2028. For a company that Reuters reports does not expect to be cash flow positive until 2029. For a company whose forecasted negative free cash flow from 2024 to 2029 totals around $143 billion. According to Deutsche Bank, 900 million people use ChatGPT every week. 50 million of them pay for it. That is a conversion rate of about 5.6%. The other 94.4% use it for free, and every query they send costs OpenAI money. Real, actual, burning a hole in the balance sheet money. The voice says that is how tech companies work. You spend first, you dominate the market, and then you monetize. Sure, that is how it is supposed to work. That is how it worked for Google, for Meta, for Netflix, sort of. But here is what is different this time. The cost of the core product, the AI inference itself, has dropped dramatically in 3 years. GPT-4 level reasoning cost roughly $30 to $60 per million tokens when it launched in early 2023. Today, comparable capability costs around 40 cents. That is a decline of roughly 99%. Which sounds like great news for OpenAI, until you realize it is also great news for every single one of their competitors. The technology is getting cheaper for everyone at the same rate. The moat is not the technology anymore. The moat is supposed to be the users, and as we just covered, 94% of those users have not paid a dime. Here is where it gets personal again. Because this is not really about whether OpenAI succeeds or fails. It is about the structure that connects their fate to yours. You probably do not own OpenAI stock directly. It is not public yet. But you almost certainly own Microsoft, which has poured tens of billions into OpenAI. You almost certainly own NVIDIA, which just participated in that $122 billion round. You almost certainly own Amazon, another investor. You own them because your index fund owns them. And your index fund owns them because that is how the index is weighted. That 40% concentration rests on one assumption, and that assumption is about to be tested. There are 3 companies, SpaceX, OpenAI, and Anthropic, that are all expected to go public this year. SpaceX is targeting a valuation around $1.5 trillion. OpenAI is at $852 billion. Anthropic is at $380 billion. Combined, that is approaching $3 trillion in new public company value entering the market, possibly within months of each other. Fortune, Barron's, and the New York Times have all reported on this convergence. When a company that large goes public and eventually gets added to a major index, Your index fund does not get a choice, it has to buy it. Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street. They all automatically adjust their holdings to reflect the index. If OpenAI enters the S&P 500 at an $852 billion valuation, your total stock market fund will buy it at whatever price the market sets, using your money. The voice says that is just how passive investing works. It is still the best strategy for most people over the long run. And maybe it is. I am genuinely not here to tell you to sell your index fund. That is not what this is about. And frankly, I am not qualified to tell you what to do with your money anyway. I am not your advisor, your money, your call. But I want you to sit with this for a second. The story you were told is that passive investing means you do not have to make decisions. The reality is that passive investing means other people make the decisions for you. The index committee decides what goes in. The market decides the weighting. And right now, the market is deciding that a company with $143 billion in projected negative cash flow deserves to be valued like the most profitable bank in America. You are not making a bet. A bet is being made on your behalf. Right about now is where most videos like this would either tell you to panic or tell you it is all going to be fine. I am going to do neither because neither one is honest. The truth is somewhere more uncomfortable than both of those options. The truth is that this system, the one where your retirement savings are funneled through a handful of indexes, that are increasingly dominated by a handful of companies making the same trillion-dollar wager. This system is not broken. It is working exactly as designed. It is just that the design assumes you are okay with other people deciding how much risk you are taking. And nobody ever actually asked if you were okay with it. They just handed you the enrollment form on your first day and told you to pick between 3 target date funds. Here is what might be worth doing this weekend. Not because I think it will fix anything, but because I think you should at least know where you stand. Open every account you have, checking, savings, 401k IR, if you have got one, credit cards, student loans if they are still hanging around. Put all of it into one number, not separate numbers for each account. One number, your net worth, total assets minus total debts. Write it down, on paper, not in a notes app you will never open again. Then open your 401k or brokerage account and actually look at the holdings. Not the name of the fund, the holdings inside the fund. Find out how much of your retirement is sitting in the same 5 or 6 companies. Find out what percentage of your future is riding on the AI bet panning out. You might not love the answer, but at least it will be yours. And listen, none of what I am telling you is investment advice. I do not manage your money, and I would not want to. I am just a guy pointing at the dashboard and saying, maybe you should look at the gauges. Before you fall asleep in the passenger seat, I want to leave you with something that has been rattling around my head. We spend a lot of time talking about AI as a technology story. Will it change the world? Will it take our jobs? Will it become sentient? Those are real questions and they matter. But for most people watching this, people with a mortgage and a kid, and a 10-year-old Honda, and an honest-to-God attempt at building something that lasts, the more immediate question is simpler, and nobody is asking it. How much of your future is riding on this, and did anyone ever sit you down and explain that? When is the last time you and your partner actually sat down and ran the numbers? Not the we should really look at our budget conversation that turns into a fight about DoorDash. The real one, where you pull up every account, put the total on the table, and compare it to where you thought you would be by now. You probably have not done it. Most people have not because they are irresponsible, because the gap between where they are and where they expected to be is a conversation that is easier to postpone than to have. Nobody is coming to explain this to you at your pace. The market does not care that you are tired. Your only real move is to know exactly where you stand. And most people do not, because the number scares them more than the ignorance does. If that hit something, you probably already thought of someone else who needs to hear it. Send it to them, not because I need the views, because that conversation you have been avoiding. It is a lot easier to start when you can both point at the same video and say so. Did you see this? Tell me something in the comments when you actually ran the numbers on where you will be at 60. Did it change anything you are doing, or did you just close the app? I am asking because I do not know the answer for myself either. That enrollment form you signed on your first day, it did not come with a page that said 40% of your future is riding on 5 companies making the same bet. Now you know, what you do with that is yours.